Case we've been following here. Suffolk County Police have spent more than a decade investigating the Gilgo Beach murders.
Well, now State Senator Phil Boyle wants to find out if New York Attorney General Letitia James is going to name a special prosecutor to look at the early days of this investigation.
There are far too many conflicts and questions that are still in place 10 years later, and people want to know, the residents of Suffolk County, the residents of New York, and the residents of the United States need to know that everything that could be done was done to try and get justice for these victims and their families.
PIX11's Mary Murphy has been following this case since the very beginning when police found the first victim's remains. So it's good to see you in person, Mary, and right here on the morning
nice
show.
To be back in the studio with you.
So Mary, you have been following this story ever since the beginning. What are some of the reasons you think now that this senator in particular is calling for this investigation at this point in time?
Well, we were trying to figure that out when we went out to Oak Beach, to the shoreline. And Oak Beach is very significant in this investigation because that's where a party was held back in May of 2010. And Shannon Gilbert ran frantically from a house on Oak Beach. And she's the one who sort of initiated, her disappearance initiated this investigation. And 6 months later, they found the first bodies in December 2010. Total of 10 sets of remains. Now, what really stood out to me yesterday was that this state senator, Phil Boyle, was slamming the county executive, Steve Bellone. He's the one who appointed James Burke as the chief of department in late 2011. And then Burke sort of kicked the FBI out of the investigation into Gilgo Beach. Now, the remains were found along Ocean Parkway, Gilgo Beach, Oak Beach, Jones Beach, and they actually date back the remains to 1996. So that's 25 years ago, although we didn't know about this serial killer case until 2010.
Right, and as you mentioned, the senator was really focusing on those two people.
He was focusing a lot on the county executive, who really hasn't been talked about much in this investigation. And there was a woman there at this press conference who's a nurse on Long Island. Her ex-husband is an attorney out in Suffolk County. And she told me that she's been talked to 4 times by the FBI since 2016 in Central Islip about her ex-husband and his relationship with politicians on Long Island and trips to Atlantic City. And, you know, there were 4 prostitutes found in Atlantic City dead in 2006.
All of this very interesting here. Now, you did reach out to Steve Bellone. Did you hear from him or about the allegations that were made?
Yes, yeah, he said this is a political charade. Now, Phil Boyle is a Republican, Steve Bellone is a Democrat, but he's term limited. He can't run again after 12 years. But another thing that came up, and it's actually been reported on in Newsday, the former county executive, Stephen Levy, he was very popular. He was supposed to run again for re-election back in 2011. And apparently he was threatened with some kind of an investigation into his fundraising, and one of his aides may have been sort of blackmailed that something about his personal life might come out. All of a sudden, Steve Levy was out of the race. Bellone ended up getting elected, puts Chief Burke as the chief of department, the highest ranking uniformed officer in Suffolk County. This despite the fact that in the 1990s there was an internal affairs investigation about Burke showing that, you know, he had sex in his police vehicle with prostitutes, that he used drugs. There's a lot out there.
This is a tangled web, and you really got to follow it closely to connect the dots here. And the web itself, though, is full of conspiracy theories. So did the senator say anything about that? Did he address any of those?
Well, he just seems to think that there are a lot of relationships here, political relationships, and perhaps one person is protecting another. And there is a person on Oak Beach who is a close friend of Steve Bellone dating back to childhood. And the state senator said that there were parties in this man's house on Oak Beach and that James Burke might have attended these parties. So there's really new stuff that I learned yesterday and stuff I want to dig into.
Well, and we know you will.
There's a lot more to come on this,
and the Bellone stuff is new, and there just seems to be, if you connect all those dots, that there's this ring of protection after 10 years, or 25 years really, that there just seems to be somebody who knows something.
Well, what Phil Boyle said yesterday was it took them 10 years to put out the belt, the black belt with the initials on it. And he said, is it going to take another 10 years to get the buckle?
Mary, thank you so much. By the way, good to see you here in person.
It's nice to see you in person,
You're one of the first people back here at the desk with us, so we appreciate it, all right?
Thank you. Good reporting there.